Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody! I am so delighted to introduce you to my guest today, Liz Kislik. For 30 years as a management consultant, executive coach, and facilitator, Liz Kislik has helped clients such as American Express, Orvis, the Girl Scouts, Comcast, Janssen Pharmaceuticals, and Highlights for Children solve their thorniest problems while strengthening their top and bottom lines. Her specialty is developing high-performing leaders and workforces. Liz is a frequent contributor to Harvard Business Review, Forbes, an entrepreneur, and she's a TEDx speaker on why there's so much conflict at work and what you can do to fix it. Please join me in welcoming Liz Kislik. Hey, Liz.
Hi, Tammy.
How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm happy to be with you.
Me too. I'm happy to be with you. So, Liz, we just covered what you're doing over the last 30 years, but I can imagine that there are things that led up to those 30 years. You didn't just graduate college and dive into helping people with their thorniest problems. And since this is a podcast about career transitions and the kinds of things that people did over the years, tell us a little bit about where you got started and how did you get to help people like the Girl Scouts and Highlights for Children and big pharmaceuticals solve their thorniest problems?
So, like many people, I kind of fell into things. What I knew when I graduated college was that I wanted to work as opposed to going to grad school. All of my friends went to grad school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I loved school, but I felt that at work in a business, you could make things happen. You weren't just learning about things, although I loved learning. You were taking actions and you could see your results. And that was motivating to me. So before I graduated, I applied to a variety of PR, advertising, and marketing firms. I had worked for 2 summers at a marketing firm in New York. And so I was looking at similar kinds of things, related in some way. But it turned out that by far the best job for me would be at the place where I had worked the 2 summers, because I could come in at a higher level. They already knew me. And I really liked the idea of the work better than the advertising and PR, because the thing about marketing, this was direct marketing, and you could actually see if you were successful or not. People bought things or they didn't buy them. And because it was in I won't say the early days, I will call it the middle days of telemarketing before it got disgusting.
Oh, okay.
It really shifted. But in those days, it was extremely sophisticated. I mean, we did work for Sotheby's, things that are not the norm at all in what people think about as being telemarketing. One of the first projects I worked on actually was, this is unbelievable, selling microwave ovens by phone when they first came out.
Wow.
And explaining to people what it was when they'd never seen one. It was quite fascinating. Anyway, I went to work there And I was supposed to start as an account executive. And I arrived, and it turned out that the first thing I would be doing was subbing, serving as an acting manager because this manager for a particular department had gone out on maternity leave. So at 21, I was responsible for a department of 24 women, all older than I was, many with families, had been there for years. It was called statistical and tabulation. This was before there was a computer on every desk. And you couldn't have paid for the education I got. It was just unbelievable. And I am fond of saying that, like nature, I abhor a vacuum. So every 6 months, they would promote me into a new job that I was already doing, because whatever wasn't getting done or was a problem, I wanted to fix it. So then I'd be doing it and I'd get promoted. When I was 23, I was running a 300 employee call center. That was the worst job I ever had. The hardest, the least satisfying. I could control the least. And that was a function of, some of it was my lack of experience. More of it was the culture of the company and trying to make things better while I was there. But I didn't like it because you could never get it good enough. Something was always going wrong.
Yeah.
Breaking down. That made me feel terrible. Yeah. And I hated telling the staff when things were wrong. And it was like bad news too often. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot.
Yeah, I bet. Curious, what was your major in college?
American Studies. And my, what did they call it then? Concentration was in, this sounds hilarious now, 20th century social thought and social policy.
Well, that has everything to do with running a call center, right?
Well, actually, there are interesting ways that one of the things that is funny about running a call center is what you're doing is managing lots of people who are supposed to be saying things you've asked them to say.
Okay, yeah.
And most people think they know what to say, the same way that most Americans think they know all about the United States. And in both cases, as an American Studies major and as a professional in call center management, I actually had to know more stuff. There was technical knowledge, et cetera. So it was always interesting to me that people thought it would be so automatic or straightforward as opposed to understanding the nuance of situations. That's actually an odd intersection between the two.
Well, I'm still trying to imagine what that must have been like to be a few years out of school and managing all these people, in a call center and many of them probably being older than you. What must that have been like? Because now you're sharing this with us with a perspective and an eye where you can put it into perspective.
I'm nodding at you, Tammy, because yeah, it's a big question. So I was scared almost every day. What was going to go wrong? What was I going to have to put myself in the middle of? Who was not going to be satisfied? So that was hard, and in many ways, almost demoralizing. And to a great extent, it was demoralizing because, as is the case in many privately held, and in this case, sort of family-run businesses and also in businesses, and this was certainly true of marketing and even advertising and stuff like that then, maybe less so now, where people think of themselves as highly creative and where it is not only permissible but desirable for people to behave in emotional ways. Like there was a lot of Sturm und Drang,
Yeah.
which is not my way.
Yeah.
I'm pretty straightforward and orderly, not necessarily on my desk, but in my thinking. So it was very challenging. I got lessons that money could not buy. I was very, very lucky to have the experience to, in many ways, to have done as little damage as I did. Most untutored leaders end up in a lot more trouble than I ever got into.
Yeah.
But also the graciousness of so many people I worked with who helped me along, who contributed to my knowledge. So lucky. I'm very, very conscious of that and very grateful for it. And it was partially because I was a smart kid in a brilliant but highly disorganized business.
Uh-huh.
And so the fact that I was just organized and organizing by nature gave me a lot of runway for figuring things out, suggesting better ways to do things. What I also learned there, and a lot of this is actually thanks to my grandfather, was if you're in charge, you have more responsibility than anybody else, and you'd better take care of that. And when there were, let's call it leftover organizational problems, once I established that, in fact, they could not be rectified through better training of skills or coaching of behavior, that in fact they were real problems, I had to fire people.
Yeah.
Not what I had ever wanted to do. I once fired a husband and wife together.
Wow.
Things that are terrible.
Yeah.
But you can do them, particularly if you have a lot of respect.
And you hung in there with it. And it sounds like you, as difficult as sometimes it was, were there things along the way or people or things? You said there was respect, that there were strengths that you brought to the job, that people respected you.
Oh, actually, I was talking about my respect for them.
Oh, okay.
That's so funny.
So, well, I'm just curious what was in place that kept you going through some of the trials and tribulations, because that's a lot to handle.
That's a really good question, because in fact, there were months and months at a time when I would actually come home every day and cry because it was so hard and so scary and so exhausting trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
I think I was very, very lucky. Again, I say lucky, and well served by my family of origin. And I think I had extremely strong values. And I'm going to tick off a few of them for you, if that's okay.
That's more than okay.
Okay. So from my mother, I get immense curiosity. What's going on? Why is it this way? How could it be another, she wants to know, I want to know. Every day I want to know what's happening. And that has enabled me, because I pay attention, to see more than other people necessarily see. And that served me both there and in my later incarnation.
Mm.
And my father has an immense sense of fairness. And I think that helped me a lot in making judgments about what was appropriate and not appropriate.
Mm.
And I think there was a family value of you don't give up on stuff, but you make moral choices. So the fact that it was hard for me or that I was struggling at points, that's not a reason to leave. But if you feel they're doing something that's not right, and I don't mean that it was illegal or anything, just not right, not the good way to manage,
Right.
then it's appropriate to leave.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that I'm so lucky in how I was born. My father's mother, very hardworking, focused, diligent person. My mother's mother, unbelievably loving, generous, wanting everyone to be comfortable. And my mother's father came to this country as a young boy, and classic immigrant story, started out cleaning toilets in a factory in the New York City Garment Center and finished his career as a co-owner of a small factory. And he loved his people. And I can't say his behavior was always perfect, but he had strong philosophical principles about how you treat employees and what it is to be responsible for a business. And I was the eldest grandchild. And even though I think he might have conceptually preferred a male first grandchild, for whatever reason, he took to me, I took to him, and I learned a lot from him about how you treat people decently. Yeah, so I just, in some ways, had the moral underpinning and fiber to go and deal.
Okay. Well, that's a rock solid answer. Wow. No, that's
I haven't thought about it that way before. Yeah.
You haven't?
No.
No? Well, when you say you're lucky, I believe you.
Yeah.
Because that's tremendous DNA that you came.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't choose that.
No. And yet to acknowledge that and to see it, and to feel it within you is really valuable.
Yeah.
How wonderful.
I'm grateful.
Yeah. I'm grateful for you.
Thank you. That's so nice.
No, it's, just hearing it made me think about my own grandparents and how they worked. And you start to think about who came before you, because when we think about this is a little, not really off topic, but a little bit about how we develop our own relationship to work and how we go about developing work. And I think about how many of our grandparents or our parents had to work or try to work through the Depression. And so the relationship to work was somewhat different. You just worked, you did whatever you had to do.
Right.
And so, and then those of us who I think fortunately could be a little more liberal in our choices about what we've gotten to do for work, or at least think a little more broadly about it. It's interesting to look back on what they all did and how they went about it, and yet we had that influence as a part of us. And yet I see that I was always encouraged to do what made me happy, but also some practical underpinnings as well. So it's just it's just interesting to see how that all fits together. It's kind of like being part of a fabric, really.
Yes,
You know,
I agree. Yep.
So 8.5 years for essentially your first professional situation out of school.
Yep.
So you left that company.
Yep.
And what was next from there?
So as part of my work there, I was very involved in the industry. I was active in the trade association already, and people knew me. It wasn't even a week after I had left that other consultants in the field were subcontracting work to me because I had a good reputation. They knew me from the old place. So I was literally working in a week.
Wow.
And never stopped. That's just true.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't necessary that I consult, but at the time I was pregnant with my oldest kid.
Mm.
And so then thinking about, because I left before I had somewhere else to go, it was time to get out and I left.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be interested in this actually. So I quit, but I worked for 2 weeks for free because I hadn't given proper notice. So I came in every day and worked a full day and left. And then within a week after that, I was working.
Wow.
But the thought of, okay, am I going to go and try to interview? So this was in December of 87. Yeah.
Okay.
Was I going to try to interview at the wrong time of year, pregnant, at a bank to be their head of customer service or, that kind of thing? Well, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
All those years, I had always had someone who was called my boss. But in many ways, even though I had to answer to somebody, I was pretty independent. I could do that in that kind of company.
Yeah.
The thought of having a real hierarchy, I didn't like that at all. So when I had these opportunities just come right away, they had too much work. They were so happy to have me pick up some of it. Well, that was the right thing for me.
So when you left that job, you were pregnant?
Yeah.
Oh, so you already had another job?
Well,
a different job description. So
yeah.
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 I see. So, so you went to the consulting route at that point. Is that right?
Exactly.
And what kind of consulting were you doing?
It was telemarketing project related.
Okay.
Then I migrated because the industry was really starting to do the kind of ugly work that, people complained about. I didn't want to be doing that. So I really migrated into customer service, customer care, consumer affairs kinds of consulting and call center management in general, inside sales for B2B, whatever that was. And what happened is when there are problems in a company and there is a customer facing function, many of those problems end up manifesting in that customer facing function. Mm-hmm. Because if the finance department has crazy policies and the billing doesn't work, your service people deal with that. Mm-hmm. And if there's a problem with product, your service people deal with that.
Right.
And if they can't get the branding together and they're fighting about it, your customers know about things that your service people don't know, and it's a problem. So being the way that I am, I would always try to explain to whatever leadership I was dealing with. And if I wasn't dealing with people at a high enough level, I would try to get to more senior leaders to explain what the problems were in the business that were happening in the call center that weren't that the call center was not their source. It was where they occurred, but the
Right.
source was further upstream.
So it was kind of like a root cause kind of approach, right?
Yes, very much so.
Right. And so you very naturally could start to see, because you had worked in many different areas of an organization prior to that.
That's correct.
You understood where these problems might be occurring.
Yes.
Right.
And I had worked, because that was a client-oriented business, I had served many different kinds of businesses.
Right.
So I was used to the fact that they would be organized differently and you still had to figure it out, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And what happened was, at any point in time, a third of my clients were very happy to hear my insights about the things that they were not aware of.
Yeah.
And so from that, and with the call center management, which involves being responsible for large numbers of people in a workforce and their supervisors and their managers and up the chain. So then that's a lot of leadership development and team development, et cetera.
Right.
And I just moved into more developmental kind of work. So every once in a while now, I get a request for work that's really marketing work.
Oh, really?
And sometimes, somebody who knows me for a long time. And sometimes that's really fun to do because it's like a tidy little puzzle.
Yeah.
But most of my work is now with leadership or developing leadership or organizational development or culture or strategy.
Yeah.
Sounding board for the owner, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it has all been a very lucky and hard work. I'm not saying it was.
No. I get it.
But you could have worked that hard and not been so lucky. So I'm grateful for really the smoothness of that transition.
So it sounds like it's been almost evolutionary in some respects, that
yes,
as different projects or problems presented themselves, you had the opportunity to solve different kinds of puzzles. And because of this curiosity that you inherited, right?
Right.
You were able to ask the right kinds of questions and then help your clients solve their problems. Now, there's this whole piece with conflict that you do a lot of work within. So that's, to me, that's almost a different kind of problem or puzzle to solve, wouldn't you say? Isn't that a little, it feels a little different to me than maybe some of the other puzzles or problems that you've been working on, where I think about some of the other things that sound almost operational, and yet conflict to me feels, it's I don't know, it has a different feel to it. How did that come into the picture for you?
You make a wonderful distinction, and I'll tell you why they're the same for me.
Oh, good. Tell me.
So, first of all, exactly to your point, conflict is just a different kind of puzzle. I'm curious about, gosh, how did it get to be that terrible pitched battle? How on earth would that be happening? So, like any other problem, analysis is crucial.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Second thing is, going back to all my family values and stuff, there's a big penchant for knowing and being able to tell the truth. That ties into the fairness and justice and all that sort of thing. Being able to put it on the table, call out what you see. And that is tied with really believing that people are good and mean to do good. And if you can only get them to see whatever's in their way or why they got caught up, just to have a new perspective, see why the other guy feels the way he does, or, that sort of thing, then telling the truth about what's going on in a compassionate way, lets you shift other people's perspective so that as you are solving the problem, you can actually get them to work better with each other. It's not just about the facts of it.
Right.
It's also about the behaviors and the feelings.
Right. Right. Well, and I get the feeling that you bring that the style of how you interact with people also allows them to engage in a way that doesn't add more heat to the situation.
I think that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
There's also this dynamic of luck that you're talking about, because as I imagine somebody listening to this conversation, I believe, this is just my belief, that luck is something you have to step into. It's not just something that happens to you.
Right.
You have to invite it in, and you have to engage with it. So clearly you've done a great job of engaging with luck, because not only have you had this beautiful, or in my opinion, a beautiful evolution from age 21 onward to this, what to me is such a, an fascinating career. But you've also become, I think, a fairly prolific writer. I mean, beautiful written expression of all kinds of, business problems, interpersonal problems in the workplace. Just listeners, check out some of Liz's writing, because she talks about all kinds of very real, very human problems that people encounter in the workplace that are so relatable and yet can be so complex at the same time. So where did the writing come in, and how lucky are you at that too?
I've always had a lot to say and have always looked for outlets for expression in general, from as a kid growing up, whether it was writing poetry or writing songs, so I've always been expressing. And when I was first consulting, there were numerous publications at that time that I wrote for, specifically within the direct marketing industry.
Oh, okay.
So I'd been doing that kind of thing for a long time, and I've had a newsletter for a long time. More recently, there is a great demand. I'm going to put together two things you talked about. There's a great demand for content from all kinds of publications, whether it's Medium, which is in some ways a much more democratic kind of forum for people to express themselves, as is LinkedIn, for example. You can post your own pieces. You can blog on your own blog. But even major publications are looking for content all the time.
Yeah.
And between my business experience and my kind of clarity that comes from the curiosity and the experience about what's going on, and also the fact, and this is a characteristic thing as opposed to a skill thing, I can't stand writing that is too general, too conceptual, doesn't tell you how. It's just normative, tells you what you should. Well, that doesn't help anybody do anything. And that's like sending people to play in traffic. And I don't have patience for that. So right. I want somebody to read something of mine and get at least one thing that they think, oh, I could actually do that. And if I try it, maybe it will make a difference. And that, to me, makes it worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. Well, as one of your readers, I would say that you do accomplish that.
Thank you.
And I don't just say that to butter you up, but I really do think that you do that. And and it does make sense now that you're explaining it, that, from the perspective of having your roots in marketing, that of course you're writing and expressing yourself in that way.
And also, I have a lot of editors because every different publication has different people involved.
Right.
So there's real value to working with editors who understand what you're trying to convey and are helping you, as opposed to the kind who are squashing what you're doing, which also happens.
Right. Sure.
But I'm pretty lucky in that too, or I've been persistent enough to cycle through until I found the right people, whatever it is.
Right.
But I think everybody needs editing.
Yes.
In the same way that everybody needs facilitation, everybody needs editing. It just helps to have another intelligent mind working on the same problem.
Right.
And knowing that and not thinking that you have to have every idea and express it perfectly creates a lot of freedom to practice trying out ideas, and then you can take the best.
Yeah. Oh, I love the way you just said that too. It almost, I almost want to generalize what you just said about, that really applies to careers too. That you really, I want to encourage people, not to say that you're going to just try every career and see what works, but the idea being that there is no such thing as the perfect job or the perfect pathway, right?
Right.
So think about those first, 8.5 years in that first company you were in, and all the different roles, forget about even the different job titles you had.
Right.
All the different, responsibilities you had, even as the job titles changed.
Yes.
And all the things you learned, things you were thrown into or, picked up, and then next thing you knew you were doing it. And look where you are today, and all that you've gotten to take along with you. And so I'm curious, looking back all those years and where you are today and all that you bring to your clients. I know it's a lot to take in. So you're on a continual path of transition. It sounds like you're always learning. I don't think
Oh yeah, that's true.
Stopped, right? As self-employed people, both of us are always looking for our next jobs. We're always
Right.
job seeking, right? So what would you say to our listeners who may be thinking about their next transition?
So I hope this isn't too contrarian, but I am not a supporter of the find your passion school of career. I never would have thought my passion was telemarketing. I mean, why would you pick that?
Right.
Right. The thing is to look around you and see what needs to be done. What will make conditions better where you are? If you have skills that are useful, then people regard you well. Once they regard you well because you have credibility, then you can afford to make some experiments and to request leeway to try things. So doing things, getting good at stuff so that you're thought well enough of that you can then make choices yourself. I think that's really valuable. And there's something kind of almost MacGyver-ish about it. It's work with what you've got wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
You may find that that's something you don't want to do. I knew I didn't want to run a big operation. Here I am, one person. Sometimes I have somebody working for me as, an admin, but one person. So you don't have to stick with things if they don't suit you, but it is worth trying to get good, solid, at everything you do. I think that's really important because that's how you're highly regarded. And when you are highly regarded for anything, that's when people speak positively about you in a way that can create forward paths.
Yeah. And I think the other key to what you're saying there, what locks it in as I'm listening is choice, having choices from there. Because you can be good at a lot of things.
Right.
And you can at that point say, I choose not to do that thing I'm good at because I want to choose to do that other thing.
That's right. And one more twist on that. Keep your eyes open and keep learning. No matter how expert you are, there will be a new angle on the same thing that you may have perfected, and it's worth learning what that is. You may never want to do it that way, but it's worth knowing that some people think that's worth doing. Why would that be? Well, there's some reason. The only way you find new opportunity, I think, and don't dry up the opportunity you've got, is if you are alert to changes in the world, changes in your preferences, but staying aware and actively seeking information, not just on the thing you're doing, but in adjacent areas. Because markets shift and industry shift and career progressions shift. Like right now, I'm reading a bunch of stuff in the area of what's typically called diversity and inclusion. And you could also call it a bunch of other things. But I think that's really important. I think systems are not fair enough now. We have to work on that. On my list, but I'm not up to it yet, at some point, I'm going to have to learn about AI, artificial intelligence, because it is going to affect more and more jobs and organizations. And I want to know about it and not be too far behind.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's great advice. Perfect advice, actually, even in a world where nothing is truly perfect. No, I appreciate that very much. So if our listeners want to learn more about your work or want to find you or want to learn from your wisdom, where's the best place for them to find you?
Well, I think you're teasing me just a little bit because for your listeners, my blog is called Workplace Wisdom. So
no, I wasn't actually.
You didn't know that? Oh, well, that's so funny.
I'm on your mailing list. I get all your Workplace Wisdom emails. But I forgot that's what it was called.
So that's nice. That's just a nice resonance, Tammy. No, that's a beautiful thing. I feel really happy about that.
Yeah.
So my website is the place where you find the most stuff. That's www.lizkislik.com, and I'm sure you'll put it in your show notes.
Yes, I will. Everything goes into the show notes.
Right, so people don't have to worry about that now. And while you're there, you can read and sign up for weekly blogs, monthly newsletter. You can see my TEDx. There's also a free ebook about the interpersonal aspects of conflict at work. And that may be helpful in some way. And of course, LinkedIn is another place to follow me. I post stuff there all the time.
Yes.
So it's not hard. There's loads of stuff.
Yes, loads of wisdom. Well, Liz, thank you so very much. This has really been a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed learning all about your journey.
It's been a pleasure for me. You made me think about and synthesize some things I had never thought about before.
Oh, that makes me so happy. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Liz Kislik. It was so interesting to speak with her and learn about her professional journey. What is your key takeaway from our interview? Is there something you'll put into action this week that you'll benefit from for years to come? Share what resonated with you in the show notes at workfromtheinsideout.com. Look for episode 061. That's also where you'll find all the links and resources from today's podcast. If you were inspired by this episode with Liz, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd love to read your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find through my website at www.tammygoularloeb.com/podcast. Just click on the Apple Podcasts button or follow the instructions provided there. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. And who knows, maybe you'll be my next interview on this podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.